The news hit hard. General Motors, a symbol of American industry, was shutting down production. This announcement sent shockwaves through the nation, leaving many to wonder about the future of American manufacturing. This wasn't just a business decision. It felt like a betrayal to the thousands who had dedicated their lives to the company. The workers, who had given their sweat and years to GM, were left with uncertainty and a sense of loss. GM was more than a car company. It represented American strength and the promise of a stable life. For decades, it stood as a beacon of hope and prosperity, a testament to the American dream. The closure signaled the end of that promise for thousands, raising questions about the future of American manufacturing. It was a moment that forced many to confront the harsh realities of a changing economic landscape. It was a seismic shift, impacting supply chains, local businesses, and communities. The ripple effects were felt far and wide as towns built around these factories faced economic devastation. The story dominated headlines and political discussions. It became a focal point for debates on the state of the economy and the future of American jobs. Why was this happening? Who was to blame? These questions loomed large, sparking heated discussions across the nation. People sought answers, but they were hard to come by. The timing was stark. During intense debates about American jobs and trade, it highlighted the vulnerabilities in the system and the need for a new approach to manufacturing. GM's decision contradicted the narrative of bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. It was a stark reminder of the challenges faced by industries in a globalized world. Corporate decisions are driven by market demands, technological shifts, and global competition. These factors often overshadow the human element, leaving workers to bear the brunt of change. For workers who dedicated their lives to GM, these explanations offered little comfort. Their livelihoods were at stake, and the future seemed uncertain. Their world was turned upside down, impacting their lives deeply. Families faced financial strain, and communities struggled to find a path forward. The closure was a moment of reckoning for the country. It forced a reflection on the past and a reconsideration of the path ahead. It was a reminder that American industry is constantly changing. Adaptation and innovation are necessary to survive in an ever-evolving market. The closure wasn't just about cars, it was about people and the painful reality of economic transformation. It underscored the human cost of progress and the need for compassionate solutions. This story needed attention, highlighting the challenges of the 21st century economy. It was a call to action for policymakers, businesses, and communities to work together for a sustainable future. GM's decision to pull the plug on several of its plants wasn't made in isolation, nor was it a sudden move. It was the result of a complex web of factors that had been building for years, both inside and outside the company. At the heart of it all were powerful economic forces. The auto industry is highly sensitive to shifts in the economy, and GM was feeling the pressure from multiple directions. One of the biggest drivers was a dramatic shift in consumer preference. More and more buyers were choosing SUVs and trucks over traditional sedans, leaving lots full of unsold cars and assembly lines running below capacity. The plants that were closed primarily produced these less popular car models, making them vulnerable as demand continued to fall. In order to survive in an increasingly competitive global market, GM had to adapt quickly and decisively, following the trends that would keep the company afloat. At the same time, the company was making a bold pivot towards the future, investing heavily in electric vehicles and cutting-edge autonomous technology, betting that these innovations would define the next era of transportation. This transition wasn't just about new products. It required massive capital investment and a workforce with new skills, leading to retraining programs and significant changes on the factory floor. Meanwhile, rising material costs, especially for steel and aluminum, combined with ongoing trade disputes, added even more financial strain to GM's bottom line. Faced with declining profits and mounting challenges, GM's leadership was forced to make some of the toughest choices in the company's history to ensure long-term survival. The decision to close plants and cut jobs was part of a sweeping restructuring plan aimed at saving billions of dollars and streamlining operations for a leaner future. The ultimate goal was to transform GM into a more agile, efficient company, one that could weather economic storms and stay ahead of industry trends. But this strategy came at a steep human cost. For thousands of workers, it meant sudden layoffs, uncertainty, and the loss of jobs they had held for years, sometimes decades. The closures didn't just impact employees, they rippled through entire communities, ending livelihoods and upending the lives of many dedicated American families. In the end, it was a harsh and sobering reality of corporate restructuring, a reminder that progress often comes with difficult sacrifices. For thousands of workers, the news was catastrophic. These weren't just jobs, they were careers built over decades. Lives were built around the promise of a stable future with GM. Suddenly, that future was gone, replaced by fear and uncertainty. The impact rippled through families, with primary incomes vanishing overnight. College plans were put on hold, and budgets were slashed. Losing a job was a blow to self-worth and identity. Options for displaced workers were limited and grim. Retraining for a new career was intimidating and expensive. The loss of health insurance was a terrifying consequence. The human cost was measured in sleepless nights and fractured families. It was a profound sense of being left behind by the company they helped build. When a GM plant closes, the entire community feels the impact. Not just the workers, but their families, neighbors, and everyone who calls the town home. The loss is immediate and deeply personal. These factories are often the economic heart of their towns, providing not only jobs but a sense of identity and pride. For generations, families have relied on the steady work and stability these plants offered. Local businesses depend on the spending power of factory employees. Diners, shops, and service providers all thrive when paychecks are steady, creating a vibrant local economy. When paychecks stop, the ripple effect is swift and devastating. Main streets empty out, and the hum of daily life fades as businesses struggle to survive. Small businesses lay off employees or close their doors, unable to weather the sudden loss of customers. The sense of loss is felt on every block. The financial blow to local government is severe. Tax revenues shrink, making it harder to fund essential services and maintain infrastructure. Essential public services face cuts and quality of life declines. Schools, libraries, and emergency services all feel the strain, leaving residents with fewer resources. The social fabric of the community begins to unravel. Places that once buzzed with activity grow quiet, and a sense of isolation sets in. The plant is more than a workplace. It's a center of community life, where friendships are forged and local traditions are celebrated. The closure shatters bonds, and the town's population shrinks as families move away in search of new opportunities, leaving behind empty streets and memories. Houses sit empty and property values plummet. Neighborhoods that once bustled with life now face neglect and uncertainty. The long-term outlook is bleak, with an aging population and economic devastation. Young people leave, and those who remain struggle to adapt. The GM shutdown leaves behind wounded communities fighting for survival, determined to rebuild but facing an uncertain future. Former President Trump's reaction to the GM news was immediate and personal. He took to Twitter, expressing anger and disappointment with GM and its CEO. He reminded everyone of the government bailout that saved GM in 2008. Trump threatened to cut all GM subsidies, including for electric cars. This was a direct threat to GM's future plans. His rhetoric resonated with his supporters, casting himself as a champion of the American worker. He framed the issue as a matter of loyalty and patriotism. This response was a calculated political move to demonstrate his commitment to American jobs. It was about projecting strength and unwavering commitment to his America First agenda. Analyzing Trump's reaction reveals a strategy rooted in populist appeal. His response was about emotion and loyalty, tapping into public anger. He positioned himself as a fellow citizen who felt betrayed. The threat to cut subsidies was economic brinkmanship. It showed Trump wasn't afraid to challenge a powerful corporation. His focus on CEO Mary Barra personalized the conflict. This approach mobilized his base and controlled the media narrative. Trump's response was political theater, loud and pro-worker. It allowed him to dominate the news cycle and define the debate. The effectiveness in saving jobs is debatable, but it solidified his political brand. It was a demonstration of using the presidency for public persuasion. Comparing Trump's response to past presidents highlights a shift in style. Historically, presidents reacted with restraint, focusing on federal resources. Past leaders engaged in private persuasion with CEOs. Publicly attacking a corporation was seen as risky. Trump's approach was the opposite, using public spectacle. He bypassed traditional media, speaking directly to the public. This reflects a deeper difference in political philosophy. Trump saw himself as a disruptive force, fighting for American workers. His response to GM was the essence of his political brand. Behind the drama lie cold, hard facts. The GM closures impacted nearly 15,000 workers across North America. The financial justification was clear: save $6 billion by 2020. CEO Mary Barra emphasized the need for transformation. The market reality was that certain cars weren't selling. The 2009 bailout created a perception that GM owed a debt to taxpayers. Trump's statement tapped into this sentiment. The automotive industry is undergoing a massive transformation. GM's decision was part of a broader trend among automakers. The problem is bigger than one company or president. It's about structural changes reshaping American industry. The GM shutdown was a watershed moment for American industry. It was driven by shifting consumer tastes and global competition. The consequences were devastating for workers and communities. Trump's response turned it into a national political battle. His strategy resonated with supporters, but its effectiveness is debated. The future is uncertain, with ongoing industry transformations. The key question is how the country will manage this transition. Will there be support for displaced workers? Can new industries be attracted? The GM shutdown is a microcosm of larger economic challenges. It forces us to confront questions about the future of work and corporate responsibility. Understanding this story is about preparing for a future demanding new solutions.